Hey, and howdy, folks. Hey, Coach Mike Mack here. I'm on with Whiskey Geo once again on our new time slot, Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Join us. We've got us a divorced dads group convoy of 4,000 plus strong, and so we're doing this weekly sessions to help. We go through different topics. Last week's session talking about how to choose your attorney. This week, this one hits me right here because we're talking about rebuilding after the wreckage. You got to start where you stand, brother.
You gotta rebuild. You
Oh,
don't have a choice. The phoenix rises from the ashes, right? And your story is not done.
so let
But
me
before we get into
go
it,
ahead.
I just want to give our weekly reminder. Anything that we say on this show is not to be considered legal advice. We are not lawyers.
Not lawyers,
We
not
don't pretend to be.
psychiatrists.
We're not psychiatrists. We cannot battle for you in court. We cannot prescribe pills. We cannot do diagnosis. We are just two dudes that have been through hell and back a few times. The devil is on my speed dial. We're good buddies. We learned to play together. But we're just two dudes trying to help out other dudes going through the shit. So
That's it. That's it right there. That's it right there. And I'm going to start with my wreckage. They're just going to be quick. Okay, in order. Okay. I stood in the bedroom door staring at the twin bed where our queen bed used to be. I lost her. Okay. I lost the house. I lost my six-figure job. I lost in court, and I ended up losing myself. Okay, so that's kind of where I was. The wreckage was, and I even ended up homeless for a while. Okay, so this is where I was 20 years ago.
how'd you
So,
make it back?
oh geez, that was the toughest thing of my life. I think me having a dog, Coco, that was the turning point when my dog looked up at me and like, hey, what about me? I care about you. And it just went from there of going. I went farm to farm, trading uh, my time for some food to eat and a place to stay, kind of thing. And it took a little while. That was kind of my therapy, I guess. I did it alone. Okay, so and I don't I don't recommend that for anyone. And so this group, this passion project that Geo and I are on, it's real. Okay, that's I could have done it faster if I had brothers like you, Geo. I really could have. I now understand the power, and I call it a convoy for a reason because shortly after this period, I became a truck driver about 15 years ago at a farm, and I learned how to drive big rig. I knew how to drive, but hauling hay and equipment, and so that was my rebuild process of coming back, finding a purpose. Truck driving became more than a job because I began to see the mission associated with being a truck driver. It was it was reminding me of my military days and being on a mission, and I think that's what really cemented it in for me to come all the way back, is to be on a mission. And because that's what you do as a truck driver. You go from point A to point B, you pick up, you deliver, and I that's really what we're doing, right, Gio? We've picked up some things along the way, and now we're delivering, and we're doing it one way in a podcast.
It's all we can do, brother. And, first of all, I know it's our mission to be able to be there for other men and this and that, but still hats off for sharing. Like, you could feel the emotion just coming right out of you. The one thing you said, like, you wish you could have done this a little bit faster. At the end of the day, I fully believe that going through any situation, you need to learn to shut the fuck up and listen to life, right?
Yep.
And I wholeheartedly believe that despite the hardships, life brought you on that path to learn something. And your dog was there. And first off, I recommend an animal to anybody who's going through a breakup. Like, as long as you're willing to keep it long term and everything, right? Because obviously you don't
Absolutely.
want it short term.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so let's be smart about it. I've never been an animal guy. I've had an animal for like I had a dog for like an hour when I was a kid because my dad brought home a dog. It didn't stop barking. An hour later, I was like, "Where's Killer? Oh, Killer's gone." I'm like, "Okay." But I know the impact of animals on the lives of people, and I wholeheartedly recommend it. But you said it, You went from farm to farm. You were exchanging work for food. You did what it took.
I did. I did what I thought was best and I needed. And that going back to the farm was my roots. I grew up on a dairy farm. And so I went back to what I knew, kind of back to my roots, and that helped a whole lot. It really did.
But it was, I'm going to assume, and I'm going to ask the question. If I'm wrong, let me know. But it must have been one hell of a fucking ego hit.
Yeah. I mean, one day I'm dad and husband and, breadwinner. The next day it's all gone. Looking back now, it was like, I lost my mom in my teens, and all of a sudden it was 1 minute she's there, the next she's gone. And it was that grieving process I went through as a teen, kind of the same that I went through with this sudden separation. It was, you got all the stages of grief. I've learned some of these things. Like I said, I'm not a psychiatrist, but I know I got stuck in the anger phase for a long time. So angry.
Normal.
Everything.
I think for me, what I see with the brothers that I work with in coaching, what I see when I deal with anybody who's going through a divorce, the two most difficult things for men to deal with is ego and anger. And here's the thing, guys, we get the short end of the stick. We have never been taught to deal with our emotions. We've never been taught to recognize our emotions. We've never been taught to speak about our emotions.
Don't be a man. You don't
Be a
cry.
man, right? Shut the fuck up
Yep.
and
Man
keep
up.
pressing. And
Man up.
let me tell you, it's the biggest load of bullshit in the world. Because we
Yeah.
move forward. So what ego and anger create is fear.
We don't want to admit it, but
So check out
it's
this
true.
math.
True.
Ego plus anger equals fear, because the ego, it's like you said, right? You went from breadwinner to dad to like husband to
To
with nothing.
nothing.
Your world crumbles all the way fucking down. And then you've got anger because of everything, and you don't know how to deal with it, and you know you need to deal with it. So what happens is it creates fear. You cannot heal unless you take that step back. And
Say
you
that
need
again.
to, you
Say that again.
cannot heal until you take a step back. You need to learn to focus on you. You have to be your number one priority. One thing that I can't stand is when I hear people saying my kids are my number one priority. Now, don't pull out the pitchfork. Take it easy. Your kids cannot be your number one priority. You have to be your own number one priority. And there's nothing that gives you a cold shower for that better than a divorce.
Yep.
Because you lost yourself in the marriage. And now you got to find yourself.
You
And
got
then
to
you got to be
find,
strong for you. And then you got to be strong for the kids. It's the
and
same. Go for it.
I was going to say, you're talking about finding yourself, and we're talking about a wreckage here, and we're talking about like it's the crumbling that happened, and I haven't really looked at it this way. I used to think of it as kind of like a storm or maybe even a tornado that come through, because I have been involved with some tornadoes in the aftermath, and how it picked up cows and, stuff, and ended up, this is out in Colorado. I didn't know they had tornadoes in Colorado, but they do. And, a guy saved his life, but he hugged onto a telephone pole and he was being lifted. And it's a good thing there was some kind of handles. Otherwise, it took his pants off and he landed down on the ground, and we'd come out and he's over there by the pole. I mean, it's wreckage. It's wreckage. And it just, oof. And then the fact that you can step back, I like that key, because when you're in it, you can't see. All you see is wreckage. All you see, there's no way out. There's no way forward. There's no way. And you're just standing there.
It's depending on what everybody does for work. When you're stuck on a problem where you can't find a solution, often what do they say? Take a step back, go for a walk,
Yep.
right?
Walk is my
And then
thing.
come back with a fresh mind. So let's get into the solutions, right? Because rebuilding after the wreckage, start where you stand. I don't give a shit where every single guy stands. The procedure is the same. All right. Whether it was an easy divorce, whether it was a complicated divorce, whether you went through hell, you're still standing in the ashes of your burnt down home, which is considered your life. And you got to rebuild.
Yep.
Right?
I like where this is
And
going.
and you have to realize that you got to rebuild your house, which is rebuilding your life. And the number one thing, and I'm going to say it again, you have to become your number one priority. You have to become your greatest accomplishment. As a side note, whenever I start talking to somebody new, and I ask the question, right, because I want to get to know her, the second I hear my kids are my greatest accomplishment, I end the conversation. Now that is going to be considered arrogant and male toxicity as fuck.
That is some monstrosity of.
How can your kids be your greatest accomplishment? Like, what happens after? What are you teaching your kids if you are not your own greatest accomplishment?
Right there. Right there. Now, the kids, don't get Gio wrong here. He's not saying forget the kids and just work on yourself. That's not what Gio is saying here, okay? Put the pitchforks away. What he's saying is the kids, yes, they are a priority. They're just not the very top, because the very top is about yourself. How can you do the best you can do for those kids if you're not healthy yourself, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally? The
The
house
example I always
thing
use
is
is the
just
airplane
huge.
is going down. Who do you put the oxygen mask on first?
Yeah. Yep. The
Who do
kids?
you put the No,
What?
sweet G,
The kids? No.
sweet G.
Why not?
And I love here it's like, no, you got to put it on. No, because if you got to put it on different people, like you got to put it on yourself first so you
You
can keep
know,
living,
I
dumbass.
just played the role
And I'm
there.
not calling you a dumb. I'm just saying, like, in general, like, you got to put the oxygen mask on you. And the divorce, the wreckage, the plane is your life and it's going down. And you got to put the oxygen mask on so that when you hit water, when you hit land, you can get out of it and survive.
Yep. And take the kids with. Because then once you've done that, then you go to the kids, right? I mean,
So how do we do that? Take a step back. And you got to analyze everything. And the first thing that you got to do, and I use this when I talk people who are shopping around for an attorney for divorce. What is your 3-year plan? People are like, 3-year plan? Fuck you, I'm trying to figure out 3 minutes. No.
the three.
What is your 3-year plan? Where do you want to get to? The reason why is because you need to operate with a goal.
See the eagle?
Mm-hmm.
The 3-year plan means you've got to kind of remove not just take yourself back for 3 years. You've got to be able to look and see a path 3 years down the road. That takes some vision. That takes some eagle eye vision to see.
And step 1 is your health. As much your physical health as your mental health.
Yep.
What are you going to do to get through this? Because if you don't take care of you, you are not going to have the energy or the capacity to get through this.
Bingo.
I'm going through my second divorce, and for me, I'm at the gym 6 times a week, 2 hours every time, and that's for me personally. It could be different for everybody else. It could be 45 minutes. It could be reading books. It could be whatever the fuck you want. What are you doing to get better?
It could be a walk, nature walk. I don't care if it's snowing. That's my thing. Walking.
You got to get yourself healthy. You got to get your head right. There are a shit ton of resources.
Oh, geez.
Including us, but there are a shit ton of resources out there, but you got to be able to ask for help.
Absolutely.
And if you don't handle those first parts, you're never going to get anywhere. And that's the ego hit, right? And that's the anger hit.
Yep.
I'm so mad, I'm not going to do anything. Everything is destroyed. Nobody's going to care. Well, shit. If that's the energy you put out into the world,
yep,
it's not going to work.
So in that taking step back, and I want to go back to the house thing for a second, because I'm thinking, I helped my brother build his house. Foundation was already there, so thank God we didn't have to do all the digging and the water. It had been burned down before, so we didn't have to do that part, but we did everything else, from just everything. Okay. The tools that we needed, and what we're starting to talk about here, Gio, is some of the tools that, there's certain tools I didn't know how to use. Okay. I'm not the man's man. I wasn't a construction guy. Okay. And I had to learn. And we had some friends around that said, "Hey, oh, I know how to do that." And that in that building of the house, it's the same as the convoy concept, is that you do it by yourself. How long is it going to take you to build a house and rebuild like I did 20 years ago? It took me a freaking long time to rebuild my house, and I didn't know the tools. And the tools we're talking about, Gio, are, it's the hammer and nails. I'm not sure exactly what that is, moving it over. But when you start to think about it, I would need a walk to put all this together. What the tools we're talking about is, this podcast can be a tool.
Yep.
A book that you find out somebody says and you read. The fact that we're talking about walking or find that thing, the stepping back, that's a tool.
Now here's the other one.
Sure.
You're building a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's helping you build the house?
Who's
Your
help?
entourage. Who's around you?
You're gonna go back to block her and protect cheese
But it's
and
not just block her. It's deciding who stays in your
who
life,
stays and goes.
shrinking your circle,
If
right?
you want to find that podcast episode, it's block her is in the title, so you just search for it and you can find it.
So do you want people who, as you're putting up a beam, they're coming in behind you and knocking it down?
No,
So
that
you got to make
talk about
sure that
anger.
you're building with the right people, right? And you got to be very selective. And it's man, the one thing that pisses me off is people who are not able to put an end to friendship. We live in a society where we could put an end to a marriage, but for some reason, he's been my boy for 15 years. And even though every time I talk to him, things come out like shit, I got to keep him in my life. No, you don't.
Even though he drains your energy.
Clean him out. And I'm going to post something in the group from a motivator that I absolutely love, but you got to keep those around you who recharge your battery. If they
Absolutely.
drain your battery, they're out. I always say, like in the divorce, she got all the friends. Like whatever friends we had in common, I'm like, go to her. I'm like, it's fine. And this happened in I even in my first divorce gave up family members. I always say it. I'm like, my first wife got my uncle in the divorce. God bless. Because the energy is not there to help me build.
Exactly.
So you're addressing your ego because you got to take a step back and rebuild. We're talking about physical health, mental health, finding the resources, shrinking your circle.
Yeah. It might even extend to finding better employment.
Well,
Financial,
that's it. I love it.
right?
And this is where it shows that we're not fucking scripted because that's exactly where I was headed. The
Nice.
next thing is take a look at your like there's so many people that stay in jobs that they hate. I became an entrepreneur again at the age of 39. And at the age of 43, stayed an entrepreneur but went into a totally different path, which was the divorce coaching and also working with family law firms in the US. I'm a guy from Montreal, Canada. But I took the risk, I took the jump.
That's a
I
huge
took
risk.
But you know what? I decided nothing was stopping me. And this is all a question of mindset. And I don't give a shit what your education is. I don't care what it is that you do. At the end of the day, those who want it get it.
Yep.
Okay? Let me be
For
clear
sure.
on something. I have my high school diploma. Later on in life, about 4 years ago, I got certified as a communications coach and trainer. I don't have a university degree. I don't have a college degree. But what I decided to do is not get caught up in my situation to not blow up and have success. Everything happened in my life that should have fucking knocked me down. I kept pressing forward. And career-wise as well. Is it easy to find another job? No. But can you? Yes.
Sure. That's, isn't that part of it? I mean, that's the struggle is part of it. That the struggle makes you stronger.
And
It's
we've
tough.
said this in other shows. Ask the people around you how they got through. We all know people who got divorced. There's success stories out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Become the better version of yourself. And you know what's going to happen? When you become happy, you become an asshole.
Explain that, Gio. I mean, I got an idea of where you're going with that, but explain that.
We live in a society where the majority of people are unhappy. We look at social media and we crave seeing positivity because it masks all the shit that we're going through. But what would happen if you decided to be happy yourself?
You mean you can choose it?
Of course. It's happiness is a choice. And, a lot of people think I might be trying to like shove potpourri and rainbows up their ass, and it's not the case. It's a choice, no matter how dark it is. And I'm talking about first marriage got me down into a studio apartment and I was eating mac and cheese every day. Second divorce should have destroyed me. It put my company in bankruptcy. It caused me a lot, but I came back. I am now living I am the happiest I've ever been because I've learned through rebuilding my home. And by the way, I started by rebuilding like a tiny 1-bedroom home to now I live, and this is obviously all, metaphors and just to build an example. I live in a fucking mansion. I am in such a good position after everything I've been through because I learned to not allow negativity around.
See, now that's the key right there, is to be your own man, focusing on yourself, doing the things that will help you be healthier. I know exactly what you're talking about because now things can happen at work with my, now wife, and things have happened in the last couple of weeks that would have normally sent me spiraling, that didn't. Okay. It's about the strength of mind, the fact that we can choose what we focus on. This powerful mind motor is there. If you let it run wild and neutral, you can go crazy. But once you focus and you put it into gear and you start to use your heart and your rear end and start to move in a direction, that's when the rebuild can that's it. Right there. It starts right here.
So here's the best example of how I proceed in life. To me, life is a boxing match.
A fight.
And my opponent is life. Life is going to come and try to kick my ass.
Try to knock you out.
And the son of a bitch keeps on getting up. But there's two ways of dealing with it. You can put your hands down and allow yourself to get the ever-loving shit kicked out of you. Or you could step up and fight. Right? And a divorce is a knockdown. You decide whether you get up or not. But when people tell me, oh, holy shit, this was blindsided, like I got blindsided, no, you didn't treat your life as a boxing match.
Very true.
I'm always in that stance where I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, okay, life, like bring it on. Like I'm ready for it. Like what? And when you start to have that mindset, because now here's what happens. You've handled your mental, right? So now you've got the mental strength to deal with it. You're eating right. So now you have the energy to stay in the fight.
Stay focused.
You've put the right people in the corner, right? You've got your proper people in your corner, right? So that when you go in at the end of the round, you're being properly supported. You don't allow any Tom, Dick, and Harry in your fucking corner. You
also can see the punches coming, and you can, how when the punch comes, you can do that little glancing, right? And where it doesn't knock you out, or to do, because they just keep coming and
because you see it coming. That's the whole point of the boxing match, right? But when you have the right people in your corner that keep you focused, right? If you keep the moron in your corner, that the bell rings, you come out and you're ready, and he's like, hey dude, look at me, and you turn around and then you come back and you get knocked out. Why? Because you don't have the right person in your corner. You're in round 7, you're gassed. Why? Because you're eating McDonald's every fucking day. When you're in round 9 and you're exhausted and you need that mental willpower to get back up and to keep fighting, those are all things that you decide on the daily to be able to keep battling in life.
Absolutely.
And a divorce, think of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, right? The scrawny little fucker up against Mike Tyson in the final showdown. Well, if you're not concentrated, he's going to knock you out. But here's the thing. Life is not a 3 knockdown rule. So you're going to get knocked out. You're going to get put on the canvas. You got to decide if you're getting back up. And rebuilding after the wreckage is exactly that. It's get up and be fucking smarter. And I know we're at 29 minutes. We'll take another 5 minutes of this, but it all sounds simple.
It sounds great.
Eating right, it's not complicated.
It sounds great, doesn't it? On paper.
But are you willing to put in the work for what's needed?
That's it. Right there.
Right? So you're going into a battle, divorce. Who's your coach? Your attorney. Did you pick the proper attorney in your corner? If you don't know how, listen to last week's episode.
Exactly.
So, training, what do we talk about? Right? Mickey and Rocky said it best. Women weaken legs. Block her. Get her out of your head so that you can train and keep going. Stop with the fucking shenanigans. Like, it's just, the game plan is there.
That is great because you just went to boxing. I love these metaphors because when you train for a match, you block everything else out and you focus and you train. You're in the gym, you're walking, you're running, you're in there sparring. You're, the punch bag, the timing, all of it begins to, like, I don't know, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it because, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about. Being able to take that step back and go, man, I can become a boxer. The funny thing is I have a metabolism coach who's teaching me boxing. Okay. That's the funny thing. And some of these, I love the fact that she says, I'm in your corner. She says that I'm in your corner. And that's when you talked about the moron, I'm like, I don't have a moron in my corner. I've got someone that actually knows about life.
And that's the way I talk about when it comes to coaching. That's what I talk about when it comes to, the family law firms that I work with. I always say is like, I would love to have us in your corner.
Perfect.
But you got to be willing to put in the work. So
exactly.
There's a saying in Italian, and it's also translated in English, and it's used a lot. You can bring the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Very true. Here's the waterfall.
So you can get the people in your corner. You can get the game plan. You can get the food. You can get, the plans for the mind. You can get absolutely everything. If you don't put in the work yourself, nothing is going to work out.
No, it's not going to do any good.
And here's the thing, brothers, listen to this. There's no excuse. There is no fucking excuse. Look, Mike, you went through it 20 years ago. I went through it 12 years ago. There wasn't an excuse back then, but it was more justifiable because we didn't have the resources that we have now.
We didn't. I don't remember any. I mean, I could have. Okay. I mean, you can look back and think could have, would have, should have.
We could, but it's so much more fucking accessible now.
Exactly.
There is no excuse.
So easy. And that might make it even...
Bullshit. DoorDash, Instacart. I don't give a shit. Fight for it.
Exactly.
We talk about choosing an attorney, right? It's like choosing a coach. If I want to win the championship, I could coach myself, which is a disaster. Well, no, sorry. I could do nothing and show up to the fight, which is a disaster. You could represent yourself, right? So train yourself. But here's the thing. When you go to court, you're held to the same standard as an attorney. So if you're going into this with a Google University certificate, you're fucked. Or you can go find yourself your version of Mickey from fucking Rocky and knock it out and do whatever it takes.
Now, don't forget the moron in the corner. I mean, I had a country lawyer. So, I mean, it wasn't the best. Okay. You could do that too,
But that's the whole part.
No,
like,
you want the best.
It's a matter of researching and finding the right people.
Exactly.
But wherever your wreckage is, however destroyed the home is after you get through all of this, there is no excuse for you not to rebuild. I'm an example of it. You're an example of it, Mike. We have other guys that can do it, and you're going through these hard times, but if you don't think that you can make it, you won't.
Exactly.
If you think you can make it, you will.
There's reasons, there's evidence, there's hope. We're doing it. So believe us, it may look like the end of the world but it's only the beginning. Okay? The wreckage is not the end of the road. It's not the end. You stand up, you build a new road, you build a new house. There's hope. No matter how, I have this expression about depression. Depression is a liar. Okay? And it lies to you. It
Yeah.
makes you feel like you're all alone and that nobody gives a shit. Not true. Okay?
I'm going to end with this one. This is my last comment of the show. It's always darkest before sunrise.
And with that, let's call it. Love you, brother.
Love you too, my man.
Thank you for another great show.
And thank you to all the brothers who are listening in, and we'll see each other next week.
Look for us in the group.
Yes, sir.